So, obviously, we have a very special guest with us today. Our intern, Hydroviv summer intern, Emily, is joining us for the summer from Loyola University in Chicago. And she's a journalism major, and we're just really excited to have her. She's doing a bunch of really great articles for us, so definitely check out her work on our website. Yeah, we tasked her with doing this really in-depth dive onto into droughts in drinking water, specifically how droughts impact drinking water, and we actually learned some pretty interesting stuff that we're gonna talk about today. So just for a little bit of context here, um, so droughts and water shortages are obviously top of mind, especially as we're kind of settling into these warmer summer months. And they've been a theme, of course, for the past decade, and we can expect to see both droughts and water shortages increase over the next few years. And of course, if you live in the southwestern parts of the United States, like California and Arizona, these are very real and in your face types of issues. And so, yeah, that's basically what we're gonna dive into today. So I guess I'm just kind of gonna ask Emily some questions, and then she's gonna tell us everything we need to know about droughts and drinking water. So, I guess I'll kind of get started with, most people are under the impression that droughts are really just impacting like the level of water available, or like the actual quantity of water that's like coming from the Colorado River, for example. But that's not necessarily the case, as we've kind of learned recently. So droughts can actually impact the quality of water. So Emily, how is this possible? Like, how can droughts impact the quality of the water that's running through our tap water system?
Yeah, so one of the most common associations with drought is lack of rainfall and precipitation. And so when you don't have that rainfall, rivers and streams aren't flowing as much as they used to. And so that contributes to, stagnant water. And we're always told to avoid stagnant water because it's kind of a breeding ground for bacteria and like microorganisms. So when that stagnant water is in your water source, then those pollutants can build up over time, and they can actually you can get really high concentrations of those pollutants, and they can make you sick, either if you're using it for drinking water and it hasn't been treated properly, or if it's being used to water crops, then those microorganisms can be passed along when crops are watered. And when you eat that food, then you're ingesting those organisms that can potentially make you sick.
Wow. Yeah. I what you said about like us, just learning to avoid stagnant water. I mean, that's usually where like those like brain-eating amoebas typically exist. Like every summer, there's always a report of someone getting some sort of really, really dangerous biological contaminant like in their bodies. Yeah, and then stagnant water just like isn't a really healthy water source. So like there's typically a lot of algae and sedimentation that just kind of occurs naturally, and it's just not like you said, we want to avoid it at all costs. Cool. All right. So what are some other impacts? We talked about, stagnant water, and then water levels, and just like less of a quantity of available water for drinking. So what are some other impacts that droughts can have on water quality?
So that lower level of water, we're seeing deep, especially in the south, especially in the west and southwest, we're seeing those decreased levels of water that can actually impact the water pressure of public water systems. And, most public water systems in the US, they serve less than a few thousand people. They're very small. They might not have the resources to treat this lower level of water that has a higher level of contaminants. So they might not be able to meet acceptable drinking water standards. And then also, a lot of the water infrastructure in our country is very, very old. So we have older pipes, which can leak, and that can waste water that can be used for drinking during a drought. But if it's leaking through older pipes, then it's just going to waste.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically what you're saying is that if these water treatment facilities are in like a really small municipality, maybe, it was built 30, 40 years ago, and they just don't really have the capacity or the technology or just the resources to filter that increased level of contaminants from stagnant waters, is basically what you're saying, right?
Hmm. Yeah, they just don't have the resources, and especially if people are moving away from those areas because they're seeing an increased level of drought, with climate change accelerating, people are moving away from these areas, and that there are less customers in the municipality, and so they just don't have the resources to treat that water anymore.
Right. All right. So, what can we expect to see? Climate change is and an increased water usage is kind of driving these droughts and water shortages. So, is there an end in sight? Like, what are some things that our viewers need to know about droughts and water shortages?
Yeah, it definitely doesn't look like these extreme weather events are going away anytime soon, just with climate change and climate change exacerbating these weather events. So there have been programs put in place, initiatives by the EPA, like for drought resilience and water conservation, such as, installing low flow plumbing fixtures in order to conserve water over time so that when a drought does hit, you're able to use that conserved water for drinking water. And then also promoting water reuse, like using water that would otherwise go down the drain to like water your plants or wash your car so that you're not using excess water for those activities.
Okay, got it. Yeah, low flow plumbing. I know that I believe in my high school they installed them. I went to a school in Maine, but obviously like just water conservation in general is good for the environment. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like low flow drinking water fountains, whatever it is. Okay, so as always, we like to leave people with some action steps. So, how can people prepare for these water shortages and prepare for these droughts? Obviously, there's guidance from FEMA and other agencies that are kind of overseeing these extreme weather events. But, Emily, what can you leave us with for some action steps?
Yeah, definitely if you're in an area that is susceptible to drought, installing those low flow systems are a great way to conserve water over time so that like I said earlier, when a drought does hit, you're able to use that conserved water for drinking water. And then also the Red Cross also recommends water reuse as part of their drought plan. So if you're in a drought and you're reusing water, you're conserving water and you're able to have clean drinking water and you're not having to use more water to, water your plants or whatever. And then also just making sure that you're paying attention to, your local government, your local authorities, municipalities, just to stay on top of any, water measures that are announced, because I know some places in California are already under water restrictions right now. So those limit the amount of water you can use and for like what you can use water for, like watering plants and things like that. And they also issue boil water advisories when water is too contaminated to drink from the tap. So just making sure that you're staying on top of that so that you know if your water is safe to drink or not, and if you have to treat it before consuming it.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, those are really great action steps. And we have linked Emily's kind of deep dive into droughts and water shortages in our bio. And those action steps are also in that article. So feel free to check it out. And if you need a recap of what we kind of went over today, definitely check out her article. There's a lot of great information in there. So, yeah. Emily, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
I'm
you.
I'm sure you'll be invited back again while you're here with us this summer. But yeah, so as always, you can DM us on Instagram if you have any questions. hello@hydroviv.com is our email. And then, of course, on our website, hydroviv.com, we have a live chat feature where we have our science team standing by waiting to answer any questions you might have about droughts, water shortages, or any other topic relating to water quality. So I hope everyone has a great Wednesday, and we will see you all next week. Bye. Thanks, Emily.
Bye.